everybody. Welcome to the Nerd... No.
There we go. Now we're live.
False start.
False start. This guy, I'm going to have to throw a flag. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Nerd Report. I am Amanda Gonzalez. Super excited, probably geeking out a little bit to be here live with the white-haired gent himself, Del Howison from Dark Delicacies. Oh, and Robert's here, too.
I'm here. But most importantly, yes, we're here at Dark Delicacies. We are extremely excited. This is a cool place. You got to come down. Right here on Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank. What's the street address, sir?
3512.
3512 Magnolia Boulevard, in the heart of Magnolia Park. We're going to get to all that cool stuff. We're going to talk about horror and writing and movies.
And it's early.
It's early. It is a little early. Yeah, so we got a whole lot to talk about. We're going to be here on the Nerd Report podcast. So stick around, guys. Let's get started. All right, I'm hoping the signal's strong. I'm hoping the signal is there. I can't tell yet, but we're going to get started.
Yeah, Lewis is asking me if we're on. So.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey, let's do it, though.
So Lewis, can you see us?
Let's do it. We'll, I think we should be good to go. Yeah, it shows that we're live.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Or dead, as it may be here.
Right.
Oh, my. So very cool.
Yeah, it looks like we're here.
So first and foremost, thank you, Del, for having us here.
Thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. I spend as much free time here as I can because, well, I have kids in college and
time here is rarely free.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's see. We have so much to talk about. You're always up for conversation anytime anybody comes in, and you have this wonderful white hair that is just my absolute favorite. I can always tell when you're walking around a convention, or we've run into you at like gas stations. Like, oh, there goes Del.
Ripping off another place. Yeah.
That's right. So here we are in the heart of what's also known as the Monster Crawl.
It is.
The Monster Crawl. So I'm pretty excited.
Couple of less monsters these days.
Unfortunately, that's true. Creature Features has just recently moved from the neighborhood, and I loved it there too. This whole stretch is such a unique place to kind of come and spend a whole day, and all kinds of stores. It's not just like your wonderful horror bookstore and gift shop here. There's Halloween Town. There was formerly the Pinup Boutique.
Right.
Of course, Portos and
Geeky Tees.
Geeky Tees, that's
Perky
right.
Nerd.
That's right.
Blast from the Past. Mystic Museum.
That's right.
Bearded Lady Mystic Museum, I guess, / Bearded Lady /
Bearded Lady used to be across the street.
And Motion Picture FX and that cupcake place down there. They'll make you cupcakes, so, what the heck.
That's right. And right now we're trying to save Magnolia Park. We got a whole hashtag Save Magnolia Park. How did the meeting go, the brainstorming meeting?
The town hall meeting,
Town hall, there we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went real well. It got a lot of publicity. There was about 200 people in attendance. There was a couple of council members and some other city employees. It was really nice, and what was offered up was there was a study done in 2016 by two ladies for like the Institute of Urban Renewal or something along that line.
Right.
And they had seen this kind of thing happen over and over and over in our country. If anyone saw the video, on that video, Joe Dante said, this is a microcosm of what's going on all over the country.
Yes.
And there's people who are against that want to preserve the pockets of individuality that we have.
Right.
Like if you go to the town of Orange in California, there is an entire neighborhood that is nothing but antique stores.
Yes.
And they're mom and pop antique stores, and you can park your car and just walk around all day and shop these cool looking shops, get lunch, spend the day in a unique area. That's what Magnolia Park is, but it's fading because in many, many cases, the landlords are looking at it and going, wow, this is a successful area. Look at how these people built it up and all the foot traffic. We can charge more.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, we've lost, Creature Features. We're losing Geeky Tees.
Right.
Pinup Girls is gone. And there's more coming up for lease this year, I understand, on the street. So we're trying to put a halt to that and say there's ways to stop it. and the institute for whatever that these gals did the report for,
Yes.
they identified 6 ways that the city and the neighbors and everything can be involved to try to keep their microcosm that exists. And so at the meeting the other night, they put up big sign-up lists, and people signed up to I want to be on the committee about trying to call this a historic area and what is involved. I want to be on the committee that does blah, blah, blah. So the meeting actually was about identifying our base, energizing our base, and then finding which area the people are interested in and letting those become smaller committees to take on that one question.
Right on, right on. Okay, cool. Well, I really hope that we're successful, or everyone is successful. I talk about Dark Delicacies all the time. I always talk about Magnolia Park on the podcast. And I didn't get a chance to go to the town hall because I was doing the podcast, but even that night,
And
I let
she
everyone
lives far away.
I do. I live where the ocean meets the land.
Yeah. She can't get any further because she ran out of land.
That's right. I put something for sale up on Facebook, the marketplace recently, and it actually goes into like the ocean, because in case Aquaman wants to buy my product. So.
But it's not about Dark Delicacies. I just want to let people understand. It's about Magnolia Park.
Absolutely.
There's the Magnolia Park Merchants Association, of which we are a member, and it's the banding together of all the different store owners to take care of problems that affect all of us. And at this moment, this seems to be the biggest problem.
Right, totally. And then every month there is the Ladies and Gents Night Out.
That's right.
That
We
takes
had
place-
to add "and gents" because somebody got offended. So
I
it couldn't
noticed
be
when that-
ladies' night out, you know.
I noticed when that when that came up, and I thought, oh wow, here we go. Let's all be PC.
We were PC. I just call it night out.
You know, that works too.
Yeah.
That works too. And then I love that every Christmas time you have the Krampus here.
We do. We have Holiday in the Park, which is put on and paid for by the merchants of the area. There's no input from the city except this is how much it's going to cost you.
Right.
So we put it on, and down at the Yumi Credit Union in the parking lot, they usually put snow, and they have photo ops with Santa for 3 hours. And we said, well, we can't let that sit by itself. So we have Krampus come in, as portrayed by Bill Rude, and we do Krampus photos. And it's interesting because the kids love it. They run up
Yes.
there, and they have the chains put on him. And, you know, he's in the full goat outfit with the basket and the hooves and everything. But the parents many times are like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll
the
let the
parent,
little
come on,
one
Mom
get
and
it.
Dad.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I've been out of the conversation. I'm just making
Where
sure.
have you been?
I know. I'm making sure I want to make sure that everybody can hear you. So yeah, I'm trying to make sure the technical stuff is okay.
How are we looking?
I think we're looking good.
Good.
I think we're okay. But no, that, like you were talking about with Magnolia Park, that's some of the charm of this place. And what it is once these businesses are kind of forced out because the rents are raised so high, it really loses its charm. It loses the personal quality that a lot of the mom and pop stores have.
And what brought a lot of people here in the first place.
Yeah,
Right.
like
Right.
one of the, I think I had told you about it. There's a bookstore in Uptown Whittier by where I live that had been there since I was in high school. So, and it was a used bookstore, and that's where I would go get comics.
The
I'd
cool
find,
one with the wooden floors and all
yeah,
of that. Yeah. I know the store.
and it's gone now because they were in a battle for years with the building owner over the rent and getting the rent raised on them, and some issues with the building itself, and unfortunately they had to close, which to us and in that area was a huge blow because it was you got to know everybody who worked behind the counter, and
Right.
it wasn't just a business transaction. It was more of a going to go see a friend. Hey, I'm going to go buy a book. I'm going to see my buddy who works at the store. So that's really what it loses.
It's like Donna at Geeky Tea says, we're a community center.
Yeah.
Basically, each one of these stores are little micro community centers where people
Yes.
gather and chat. And,
Right.
And that bookstore that you're talking about was no small bookstore.
No,
That was a big building.
It was very big, and I used to take my kids there because they had a section in the back, but of course my kids would always gravitate towards the horror section for some reason. Don't know
His
why.
daughters they're
What
9
is
and
wrong
11.
with them?
Yeah.
The girls are 9 and 11?
9 and 11.
And they're huge horror fans. Huge horror fans.
They love horror movies. I wish they could see just about, every horror movie out there, unfortunately. And it's
there's a few they can't yet.
Yeah, there's a few they can't, but it's funny because we've spoken about it before too. Mexican families, especially, my family in particular, you can see any horror movie, but once the shot of a woman's breast comes on, oh no, cover their eyes.
That's it.
Yeah.
We can cut their heads off.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah,
but
right.
no boobs, no
but
boobs.
boy, they better have their clothes on.
Yeah, they better have their clothes on, but let the heads fly and let the guts spill out. But no, natural bodies.
I always found that weird. That's kind of that Puritan reasoning.
Right.
I don't get it. I would much rather have my kids see two people making love who happen to be in love, or you think they're in love, on the screen, than going, I'm so mad at you, I'm going to cut your head off.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
What are we teaching them?
Yeah, and it's funny because I still find myself doing the same thing. They were so enamored with Michael Dougherty's Trick or Treat just from the packaging.
Right.
And I even dressed up my youngest as Trick or Treat, or Sam from Trick or Treat. Made the costume, made the head. Went the full nines on it. And I was like, they want to see it, but I'm gonna have to kind of really monitor certain things and.
Is there stuff in that film?
There's a little bit.
Yeah?
There's a little bit, and then the
I'm so sorry.
no, you're good. The my wife at the time, she's like, oh no, we can't let them watch. I go, yeah, I get you, but no, they love horror movies. They can't get enough of it. Absolutely love them. But
where is the bad in that one sexually? Is it in the werewolf scene with the dancing around the fire?
That's what. Yeah,
see, there you go, hiding boobs from your kids.
I know, and the kids are gonna eventually be like, hey,
You continue.
I know, I continued this horrible pattern, but you just find yourself kind of doing the same thing that your parents would do, and then you think after, like, why? It's a movie. It's art. That's what I want them to understand. Is it's a movie. It's artistic. But, conflicting ideas.
You can come to the museum, but we're not going in there with that Venus de Milo thing.
Right. Don't look at that. And don't ever see that. It's graphic.
You can look at the Mona Lisa, but don't be looking at Venus. Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding? The screensaver on my computer at home has been Dita Von Teese.
Ah, there you go.
In restraints for some time. So, yeah.
But she's clothed.
Ish.
Semi.
Ish.
Ish. Ish, yeah.
Yes.
So getting back really quick to Magnolia Park, it's...
Speaking of naked, let's get back to Magnolia.
That's how we get down.
But, it's horrible to see the way it's going, and especially, the first time I'd gone to Creature Features, or actually the second time I went, it was for... and I wanted to talk about what you do here as well with your autographs and your signings and events and everything. But I had gone to Creature Features for the recent It movie where Alec Guinness and I can't remember his partner's name, but they did the makeup for Pennywise for the new movie.
Right, they were the ones that did Aliens and stuff.
Right,
yeah.
They're from ADI Studios.
Mm-hmm.
And
nice guys.
Yeah. Oh, they're very nice guys. Super, super nice. And
wow, we needed to put another shot in there. Oh.
And
this is totally water, I promise.
Yeah, there's no vodka in it. So yeah, that was my first time there, and I mean, that's the sad thing that this area is losing is a lot of those community events for our artistic endeavors, like for movies, and I've always loved hearing from people who worked on the movie from the technical side as well, and
right.
Even composers and not necessarily from the big A-list stars or but just people who the average everyday worker who makes a living working in that environment and working on films and
it is a community.
Yeah,
it's like you can come in here to Dark Delicacies anytime and probably see somebody from KNB talking to an actor from so-and-so who's talking to a director from it, but it's a sense of community, and this street is a sense of the nerd community.
Absolutely.
We've created a Nerdville and a geek city that is
right.
really cool because whatever your interest is, there's something here for you. But
right.
you made me think of a question to ask you.
Yeah.
You were talking about the behind-the-scenes people, the effects and monster builders. I've had people ask me this question, and that is when you listen to them talk and you see things about how they make stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then see the movie, does it take something away for you because you know how it's done?
No, absolutely not. It goes back to me even being a kid going to like Disneyland. When I would ride the Haunted Mansion, I would always try to look behind me to see how it's done because I've always been
Looking for the wires.
right, right. Yeah, I've always been inquisitive in that sense. Like, how did you do it? How did you trick me? Kind of thing. And
Right.
that's what I've always loved, and that's why I'm such a supporter of practical effects. I
Yes.
love practical effects, and we talk about it a lot too. Like I'll tell her, hey, that movie was good, but the CGI just killed it for me, and that's why it took me out of the movie.
And a lot of times the CGI is overused instead
Yeah.
of using it as a complement to the practical effects.
Exactly.
So that they work
Exactly.
together, you
Right.
know.
Right.
It gets used because it's a cheap way out for them
Right.
nowadays. And,
Right.
and I agree with you. But it's always been that magician's code
Yes.
of we can't show you how the trick is done because then it takes away the magic. And I have to say, for me, when I know how the trick is done, in this case we're talking about film or television, it doesn't take away the
No.
magic for me.
Right.
And I think that's something very special about horror fans in general, is that they love guys like Tom Savini and a lot of Ray Harryhausen and a lot of people who work
Greg Nicotero.
when they worked on these movies, and when you would see like the behind the scenes stuff. Like
Right.
I just recently bought the steelbook for Reanimator, and they have an updated
Jeffrey Combs was just here. I
yeah, he
told
was
you
just
about
he was
that.
just
And
here.
coming back.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
is he
right.
coming back?
Yeah.
Yep.
So and so they go, of course, the behind the scenes shows, practical effects and what they were doing and talking about how they would set up the shot. And horror fans are so dedicated to that stuff. And
Yes, we are.
extremely dedicated. And I remember when I bought I got the email saying, hey, all these movies are out. There's a steelbook for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Reanimator, Evil Dead. And I went down immediately to go buy it because I didn't want to miss out on the chance. And I think a couple of them were already sold out at the store.
Yeah.
And that's what my meaning is that they're so dedicated to these movies and the behind the scenes stuff. And I mean, horror fans, I've noticed they'll talk all day about horror movies and novels and books. And what I've also noticed too is there isn't a toxicity in their fandom the way there
Right.
is in sci-fi, even recently in Star Wars. There really is not
Boy,
a
did
toxicity.
that get mistreated.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I mean,
I liked Solo.
I mean, yeah, it's not there,
Right.
Because there's just such a genuine love for horror films and horror movies and novels and books.
And yeah,
So-
we'd like them all to be perfect and
Right,
great,
right.
but we enjoy the cheesy ones for their cheesiness.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
and we love movies like Tremors and all of
Yes.
this great stuff that is all about the cheesiness of it. It's really interesting that we grow more into the movie the more we know about the movie.
Right. Yes.
And I was
That's
saying
true.
to somebody, I was interviewing Heather Wixon,
Uh-huh.
and I said, you're a lot like Barbara Crampton in the respect that you did horror, you were in some hits,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went away to raise a family.
Mhm.
And when you came back, you were immediately re-embraced by the horror crowd. It's like you
Absolutely.
didn't go anywhere. If you
Right.
do one film that connects with the horror crowd, you've got convention fodder for life.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
telling
yeah.
you.
That's right. I was going to quote you as in that podcast that I watch you on. You're embraced by the horror community for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life.
That's
right.
right.
Yeah. It's such a dedication. Because like for myself, it goes back to the 80s and stealing my older cousin's Fangoria magazines and again.
Covering up the Playboys with them.
Right. It was that's exactly what it was in some instances.
Really, Fangoria's got some great articles.
Exactly. You got to see this article on golf. It's great.
I am learning so much about you today.
Really quick, we have one of the viewers is asking. It's Robbie Nabarra, and she was asking a question. It's for Dell. Was wondering what's been your favorite part of running Dark Delicacies.
The fans, number one. Number two, the people who have signed for us. 99% of everybody has just been wonderful. And the fact is that they like each other. and they support each other like we were just talking about.
Right.
And without the input from either one of those two groups, we wouldn't exist.
Nice.
Oh, I love it. And what's really cool about, because I've attended quite a few events and signings here, and I even wrote a small list of some of the people that I've met here. But there was one time I came, I don't know if it was Dave for the Scream Queens, but you came up and you're like, hey, you see that guy over there in the hat? That's Jeffrey Reddick. He made the Final Destination franchise. And just that people, like famous people, horror legends, actors, actresses, everybody from the industry is here hanging out, and they're very approachable.
Yeah, they're just having a good time because
Exactly.
unlike a convention, it's not people, I paid to park, I paid to get in, and now I have $50 I have to spend on this autograph. It's like,
Right.
hey, it's just we're hanging out and yapping here.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Oh, one of my favorite stories to tell people is that when you had a signing for Book of Life, I think it was Jorge Gutierrez, and Guillermo del Toro showed up.
uh-huh.
What?
Yeah, he came in and signed the stuff ahead of time to
Right.
help. Yeah, in fact, I think Jorge's coming back, isn't he? I'm looking at my wife over there.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Sue.
So Jorge
Sue does not do cameras.
Yeah.
So Jorge is coming back for another signing.
Oh, right on.
So,
Do you know the date yet?
do you know we're still waiting to get the final? Oh, a kid's.
Oh, Kids Dia de los Muertos?
Yeah.
Kind of
Oh,
thing?
wow.
So we're just trying. He's got that book coming out, and there's a couple of available dates, and we're just waiting for him to
That's
secure which date it
exciting.
is. yeah.
Nice.
That's exciting. Now, I want to review for the folks. If you've seen my Instagram or my my Facebook, Instagram at Phantasm420, I want to just say a couple of the names that I've been able to meet here. Adrian Barbeau, Ray Don Chong, Ginger Lynn, Don Coscarelli, Reggie Bannister, the cast and crew of Phantasm Ravager, the cast and crew for John Carpenter's Christine, Bob Gurr, legendary, Disney legend and
That Christine
Imagineer.
signing was huge.
Wasn't it? Every time I make a post about Dark Del, I put Christine on there. They brought Christine the car here.
She was out front.
She was out front,
front
and
on
you could get
Magnolia.
a little package and sit in her, and it was amazing. It was amazing. So Bob Gurr, Mick Garris. I met Mick Garris and John Landis here at the same time. My mind was blown. I couldn't even be in the picture with them because it was incredible. Joe Dante, Dick
All
Miller.
her photos are out of focus from her
They
going
are.
like-
I
No,
do this-
you'll notice what her photos are is her hands. She
Yeah.
gets very nervous with her
in
hands.
my hands, I'm like,
And her,
"Frick."
she doesn't know what to do with them. So I always tell her, "Oh, creepy hands. There they are again. Creepy
Yeah.
hands."
Like there was one night that it was for Digging the Marrow, Adam Green, Ray Wise, and Kane Hodder. And I remember you're bringing them out like a beer, and they're just hanging and chilling. It's a very relaxed kind of environment, and it lacks that convention feeling of like where you feel like maybe sometimes you're maybe pestering or.
And the thing that I think I figured out, just probably not, it's just me, but it's like a cavalry charge at a convention.
Yes.
If you're sitting at the table, because I've been able to sit on this side a couple of times, and believe me, it's a totally different experience than being on that side.
Right.
But at a convention, it's like there's this long line of people, and they're coming at a sign, here's the money, sign. Whereas at here, it's like, hey, can I get a shot? And they're talking, and their friends over there go, just a minute. They go over and hug somebody they know,
Yeah.
and it's just all kind of nice. And you don't feel like you're being a tidal wave.
Yes.
You know?
That makes sense. I have to say, well, Christine, I waited the longest in line for. That's when you started like the number system.
Right.
In waves of numbers. But Doug Jones was the longest wait besides that I had here. Because
Huggy Duggy.
Yeah.
Doug Jones,
Yes.
when you approach Doug Jones, he's genuinely so thrilled that you're here to meet him. He's so gracious. He embraces everyone like in big hugs.
And when he embraces those arms,
His
those
arms
arms
just
and hands
yeah
just-
engulf you. They're
Yeah.
all around you, right?
Absolutely. And of course, I met Basil Gogos here. That was the night that you got the Rondo Award that
Right.
hangs here behind the cash register.
I was
wanted-
so lucky to have him here at the same time. I mean, we knew each other from before, but
Right.
he just happened to be here that night because there was Son of Monsterpalooza or something in town that
Yeah.
they were here for the convention.
And you
Okay.
brought him and his artwork, and just to see him in person, and may he rest in peace. Thank him for all of his contributions to the horror genre and just art world in general. And I'm a huge Metallica fan, so I get to see Kirk Hammett's guitars.
There
and,
you go.
And so I wanted to ask you though, do you ever get starstruck? Like I know Roger Corman's been in here before, and do you ever get starstruck? And if so, who would be an example?
I think all of us probably have a person that would
Right.
way back early on, we did in one of the earlier venues, we did a thing for dog rescue. And we brought the dogs in, the lady who was running the dog rescue, and we had them in a little pen. And of course, I went home with a couple of dogs. But we had the dog rescue, and she said, I'm bringing in a friend to help with this, and maybe, you know, their name will help get people to come out and check. She brought Tim Curry in.
Oh, my gosh.
This is way back. Now I have a photo of Sue sitting on Tim Curry's lap from way back in the day. So that's one of those starstruck things.
Wow.
He is like he is my pinnacle. He is my absolute. He is. I mean, Wes Craven, you know, we lost him, but Tim Curry is my everything.
Right. Richard Matheson, first time I left him.
Oh, wow.
First time I met him, I was starstruck because he was such Ray Bradbury.
Yes.
Ray Harryhausen. You know, these people were the giants of my time to look at and go, oh my God, these are the shoulders we're supposed to stand on.
Wow.
You know?
Wow. That is spectacular. That's because I get plenty starstruck. There have been times that I've come in here and talked with you and just been like out of my mind excited because
Well, you can get excited, but don't get starstruck with me.
I don't know, that scene in Dahmer versus Gacy where you're getting your eyes gouged out. It's pretty cool.
That's the pinnacle of my career. Getting my eyes gouged out in the dumpster. That's it.
You know, and I'm looking up there on the shelf and I see the book of lists, the horror one. I have that because it's signed by Del Howison. What a great book, and it includes like directors and writers and everybody in their list of different, like, I'm trying to think of.
It can be anything. I mean, we had categories. There was a list of horror drinks. There was, zombies, Bloody Marys. All. There were lists of their favorite movies. And the best response I have had to the Book of Lists Horror, which I co-edited with Amy Wallace and Bradley, is that people have come to us and said, after reading this, it made me start my own list of movies I haven't seen that I read about in this book that now I want to see, or books that I haven't read. I read about them in here. Now I want to read them.
Oh, yes.
So it's great because it's not that you sell the book or people read the book. It's that the book affects them enough to go out and do something.
Yes.
And that's real. It's like if a little kid reads your child's book, you know, that maybe you wrote a children's book and this little kid reads it and goes, oh, I was so excited. The fact that
totally.
Somebody said to me a long time ago, art should provoke. Art should make a response happen. If it doesn't, somewhere along the line, you've failed. It should invoke some kind of response, however small it is. So.
Yes. Totally. I see. I have all these notes from listening to that interview. About
she was listening to. I did like an hour and 20-minute interview with Michael Verratti on his podcast, Dead for Filth, or Death for Filth, Dead for Filth.
Yes, and it's an incredible interview, and it's a great time, and I loved listening to you talk, and it's probably more professional than what we're presenting here, but we're having fun.
Michael is a great interviewer. He
really,
knows what
really
he's
is.
doing, and he does his homework. But maybe he's not as fun as this. There was only one Michael. There's two of you.
That's right.
No, what I also wanted to bring up too is you do a writer's workshop, and I believe it's on Sundays.
Second Sunday of every month.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what it entails and what your workshop is like?
It is, the one here is run by Peter Clines, who is a New York Times best-selling author. It's an offshoot from his friend Jonathan Mayberry, who started it back in Pennsylvania, I believe. I've heard the spiel when he talks to new people all the time so much. And the idea was Jonathan would do this whole thing for writers. It would be a meeting. They'd talk about stuff. After the meeting, they would go out and get coffee when the meeting was over. And some of the people would kind of straggle along and join him for coffee. And he found out that people were getting as much out of the Q&A and response and casual conversation after the meeting.
Right.
So they decided to start this writer's coffee house. Has nothing to do with coffee, really, unless you bring a cup of coffee.
Bring your own.
Bring your own coffee. BYOC.
Right.
So that's what it started. And Jonathan runs one down, now that he's moved out here to the left coast. He runs one down in San Diego at Mysterious Galaxy.
Oh, right on.
I think it's the first Sunday of every month. You guys can correct me out there if you know. And then ours is the second Sunday, and that's run by Peter Clines. And it's writers whether you write in your diary, make notes in for your upcoming interview, or you're a best-selling author, a script writer, whatever, when you walk into the room, we are all at the same level. And it's not one of those things where it's like, here, I wrote this, would you read it and critique it?
Right.
We don't care about that. Not that we don't care about your writing.
Right.
That's not what it's about.
Right.
It's about the first half. It's 3 hours long.
Okay.
The first half is about the craft of writing. Hey, how do I know where to start my story? Do I start in the middle? Do I start with action? Whatever it is, he comes with a preset subject to start the meeting. And then in about 3 minutes, it goes off in some crazy direction. But it's about the collective hive of writers solving each other's problems and making suggestions. And then the second half of the meeting is about the business of writing. Because I had an old director one time who said, if you paint the Mona Lisa and you put it in the closet, nobody gives a shit. So you can be the best writer in the world, but you've got to get it out there.
Right.
So the second half might be about, what should I look out for in a contract? How do I get an agent? Whatever it is, it's the business part of the meeting. So it's both halves put together, and it's 3 hours, and it's absolutely free and once a month.
Oh, right on.
Excellent.
So
And then you get to explore Magnolia Park while you're here. Win-win.
that's right.
Right.
That win-win.
Win-win.
There you go.
We do have a question from somebody who's viewing Intergalactic Mojito. That's her name. That's a pretty cool name. Intergalactic Mojito.
Drinks for the whole universe.
Right.
That's right.
Which of all horror movies do you think stands the test of time?
That's interesting, because I think there's horror films that you can't compare to each other.
Right.
I mean, there's things about the Universal monsters that obviously have stood time.
Right.
Then there's more modern things like The Exorcist and The Haunting of Hell House or something that from that period. But it's really, what's the Bruce Willis one about I See Dead People?
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
How
right.
do you compare something like The Sixth Sense to Frankenstein to Exorcist? I mean, they all have some kind of a thing that stands the test of time, and yet they are completely different.
Right.
You know, so people come up a lot of times and go, "What's your favorite horror film?"
Oh, it's hard.
What's my favorite horror film? What's my favorite line of dialogue? I mean, it's like, you know, it's almost impossible, because horror encompasses a much bigger parameter than people like to give it. Nowadays, their mind immediately goes to slasher.
Right.
Right.
And there is not a pie chart, but it's like one of those family tree charts of horror. And there must be 50 to 100 categories of horror, from psychological horror to supernatural horror to slasher horror to comedic horror. It goes on and on and on. And you can't really compare those. But I think, if you start with the Universal monsters, they have stood the test of time. Now, when I saw Frankenstein when I was a kid, he may have seen, on Saturday matinee on TV or something, he may have seemed a little corny, where he was completely frightening for the original audience.
Right.
And there's stuff that we did. There's a lot of people that find The Exorcist corny. I know, I said it. But I'm not one of those people. I really like it, but you have to put things in context to the time that they were released.
Yes.
And what was going on in politics, in current events, and in the world in general, because horror almost always plays off of that or reflects that back to us, like George Romero and his zombies making political statements without overtly saying this is a political statement.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I just recently showed Phantasm to a 22 and 30-year-old, and they're looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "This Angus Scrimm, he's the tall man.
Isn't he scary?"
He's horrifying. What are you? I didn't sleep for days after I watched this movie. But,
Boy.
Yeah, exactly. But I just turned 40, and so when
it's funny how it changes, isn't it? It's an amazing
It's fascinating.
thing.
It is. It really is.
Well, I showed The Exorcist to my oldest, and she didn't find it scary.
Right.
She didn't think it was scary, and I asked her, I go, "You didn't think it was scary?" She goes, "No, it was good, but it wasn't that scary."
Ooh.
And I told her that destroyed me as a kid.
Oh, another one stand the test of time? Jaws.
Yes.
Yes.
It's probably one of the best monster movies.
My
ever
daughter
made.
and my daughter, she loves that movie. Anytime it's on,
She finds it scary?
She does, and that's what I don't get. It's funny because we went to Disneyland yesterday and we went into the submarine ride and the Finding Nemo ride, where perception as it takes you underwater. And she won't put her head in the little looking window. And I asked her after, why not? Oh, because Jaws.
That's right.
But I go, what? I see it, and it's weird.
Did you tell her that's universal? Not
Wrong theme park.
Wrong theme park. Exactly. But yeah, it's funny because it just depends on a person's psyche or actually what scares them or where they're at, especially, if they've seen so many movies or, in this modern era. But that's what I found it so funny was that, when I showed her Exorcist, she wasn't scared. She went to bed, no issues, everything was great. And I just thought, God, that movie just killed me as a kid. Like, I would say even into teenage years.
Yeah.
The makeup by Dick Smith was phenomenal, and it just burned it into my memory. And so for me, it was game over. Hey, that movie's ultimate horror movie for me. But for her, no. And she did get scared at movies like Annabelle, and it kind of, The Conjuring is kind of what gets to her. But Jaws, she won't put her head in the window, and I'm thinking, kid, you watch all these movies and you don't want to put your head in the submarine window. But it makes me thinking that's why horror is specific.
Don't do this at home. Put your head in the submarine window.
Right. That's if anything you take away from this, that's what it is.
Don't run with scissors or put your head in the submarine window.
That's right. You know what movie I showed my daughter is very into horror movies like myself. What I showed her when she was like, "Oh, these movies aren't scaring me," let me show you Hellraiser 2. Hellraiser 2 is the one that got her. That's the one that messed her up. She's like, "What are you having me watch?"
Did she see one?
Yeah, I showed her one first,
and that didn't do it.
Oh, that one, she got a little frightened by that one, but then Hellraiser 2 kind of pushed the envelope.
So
just
as a
a little
mother,
bit
you
more.
were like, you think that's scary?
Yeah.
Yep.
Now you're gonna watch this.
Wait till I show you this one.
Twilight Zone movie. You want to see something really scary?
Right.
You're really nice.
Well, he brought up Annabelle. To me, Annabelle Creation was one of the best horror movies of the last 5 years. In this modern day of contemporary horror, I'm not trying to be cliche or anything. What are some of the best movies that you've seen over the last couple of years?
There's one that I really enjoyed that I think it's only on Netflix. It was The Ritual.
Oh, I didn't.
And it was about the guys going on a woods hike trip, and then they get caught up in this whole thing with a monster in the woods. Excuse me. And it was really good. I mean, it's hard. A lot of the movies nowadays rely on jump scares, which aren't my kind of scare, know. Let's go back to Race with the Devil, the Peter Fonda, that whole War Notes, I think.
Yeah.
There's a scene in there which was the first jump scare I remember. Obviously not the first jump scare, but they're in an RV, and she opens the cupboard and a cat jumps out.
Yeah.
And it's where, I feel the term "toss the cat" came from, because it's that kind of a jump scare where somebody off stage goes like this with the cat, and they go, "Meow," you know. But now we seem to rely a lot of times, and it's bothersome to me in the last 5 years or so.
Right.
Suddenly the pulse-pounding music is going to tell you something scary is happening. Now it's bam, 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 because the music's got to scare you.
Right.
Because it's really not innate in the film.
Right.
And then we have to do something real fast and flash it at you. I like the scares that are the slow, suspenseful build, that something's coming. I like that feeling of dread.
Yes.
I like that feeling of, uh-oh.
Yes, exactly.
You know, and that comes first from the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if modern horror films, in general, not all, don't send letters, don't kill my dog. I think modern horror films, in general, take a premise and then kind of go lax on the writing, which made it so important in the old days. You know, I guess that's why I'm enamored a lot by books, and we've got 7,000 horror books in here.
Yes.
Because there's something in the writing. I love words, and there's something in the writing that makes a difference. We can all tell the same story, but it's in the telling.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, also speaking of writing, and not to go too off subject, you just
because we've been talking about submarine portholes.
That's
right.
That's right. And my co-host especially will be interested in this. You have your working title, a book, a Western that you just sold.
I did. I did.
Yes.
We're now in the editing stage with the publisher.
That's right. And it's The Survival of Margaret Thomas.
Correct.
Did you know about that, nerd?
No.
Yes.
Did you know about that?
Yeah. See, because I love westerns. I absolutely love westerns.
He just took a trip to was it Tombstone?
I do go to Tombstone.
Yeah.
I go maybe
When
once
you go
a year.
to Tombstone, you have to be going to Tombstone because there's nothing else around
There
it
is
anywhere.
There isn't.
No.
There literally isn't. I think I had to drive 20 miles outside of Tombstone to find a Carl's Jr. because everything shuts down at night.
Yeah.
Everything it's
Well, the bar's open.
well, yeah, the bar stays open, but we were bummed because we couldn't. They stopped serving. I think after 8 p.m.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Big Nose Kate's Saloon, which used to be called the Grand Hotel, which is still original building. They stopped serving food at 8 p.m. and we were there, and we're Googling, hey, where can we find a meal? And yeah, it was about 15 miles outside of Tombstone to find a Carl's Jr. But
Well, you can always go to Tombstone to see, like, what is it, the world's biggest rose bush or something. They've got one of the adobes just down the street. The entire patio is covered with one bush that's been there for like 100 years.
Oh my gosh.
And it just
I've never seen that one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So now he's going to add that onto the
Now-
itinerary.
Yeah,
For Tombstone Trip 5.
There
Right.
Just kinda
Yeah.
let me put that in. But yeah, this is a straight Western, not supernatural, told in first person from the female's point of view.
okay.
So it's kind of like, if you wanted to compare it to anything, the closest thing would be a True Grit, because
Okay.
it's a quest with her going on a mission, right? Going someplace, but it's told from her point of view. And she is, where in True Grit, Maddie was like 12 or 14, the lead character,
Right.
and she's like in her 30s.
Okay.
So it's different, but she's from back east, so she's facing this whole new dirty, dusty, thing, going out to attend a trial on the other side of the country.
Oh wow.
So
That's cool.
Nice.
And you also
next July,
July.
Oh, right on. So everybody
not
pick that
not
up.
July 18, July 19.
July 2019.
So you made a quote also, or to quote you again, you said Westerns and horror are about loners. And I really liked that.
About loners?
Yes.
Yeah.
Westerns and
I
horror
thought she
about
said
loners.
moaners for a
Oh.
minute. And I was wondering,
No,
did I
that's
say
it.
that?
That's the Nerd Report After Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I mean, the famous line is that there's only two storylines in a Western. A stranger comes to town or they go on a quest. Almost 90% of all Westerns can
Right.
fall into
Yeah.
that. Mine's a quest, but yeah. And it's usually about an individual. Now, they may, like in my case, my individual is joined by other individuals.
Right.
But they all have their own personal reason for being a loner.
Yes.
And I find that interesting, how people live within themselves, even in modern society, that no matter what happens, if you are 85 years old and you're lying in bed and you're dying and you know you're dying and you're surrounded by your family, you die alone. You're the only one who dies.
Right.
So it's always an individual loner experience.
Absolutely. And I did like also how you
This was the
compared-
happy report.
Yeah.
It's horror, people. So, but also you compared like the group or who she travels with. You compared it to like a Night of the Living Dead type of or Dawn of the Dead, where groups of people are kind of drawn together.
Because of a common reason, right?
Exactly.
And it's also got a little bit, was it the Brementown musicians, the old Grimm's or an old fairy tale, where there was like the cat and the fox and the whatever,
Yeah,
and they
all
were
different-
traveling on the road together.
And then they end up end up on an endeavor together, and they're right.
That's what this basically is, and they pick up people along the way.
Kind of travelers and stragglers, and they all have a
Right.
common goal.
Hey, can I go with you?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, and then
Right.
So, and I wanted to ask you, who is D.H. Altair?
obviously that is me. No, when I was hired by Ulysses Press to write Vampires Don't Sleep Alone and the Werewolf book, I was doing them at the same time. I was writing the two books at the same time, and they wanted their catalog to look like they had more authors.
Right.
So they had me do a pseudonym for one one of the books.
Okay.
So they
And-
had one more author.
So they
They
had
had
one more
an additional
author in
author.
their catalog.
Right.
Yeah. So I changed my name to D.H. Altair. Obviously, D.H. my real initials.
Right.
Altair being my alter ego. But I also think somebody told me that Altair was from the old science fiction movie with Ann Robinson and them, on the planet with the Robbie the Robot guy and all that stuff. I'm not a sci-fi
yeah,
fan.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Anne Francis, I guess.
Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet.
And Francis stars in Forbidden Planet.
And there's somebody named Altair, maybe the scientist or
Oh.
something. And but I hadn't pulled it from that. They just pointed that out.
Oh,
Oh.
right on.
And I said to him, "Huh." That's what I said, just like that.
At least you didn't say, "Oh yeah, that's where I got it
Yeah.
from." It was back in the memory bank up here.
Testing your film history.
Right.
There you go. So, and you also have acted. I mentioned Dahmer versus Gacy. Even Lord of Illusions. You were in Lord of Illusions, which I love that movie.
In fact, I met Clive Barker on that film.
Oh.
Sue and I were pretty new out here. This was like, what, 93, 94, something like that? Somewhere around there. And we read where they were doing they were looking for extras, and they were doing this mass scene at the Pantages.
Okay.
Where they were doing the big illusion scene that's in the movie.
Right.
And they needed to fill the Pantages. So we went and sat in because it was a new experience for us to go to this thing. And Clive was there directing on stage and all of this. And at that, they gave out numbers to everybody in the crowd and said, we're going to pull like 2 or 3 numbers, I think, and if your number gets pulled, you'll get to be an extra, a little more intimate kind of thing
Oh, cool.
in a follow-up scene. And my number got pulled, and I got to go up on stage and meet Clive. And then I was pulled over to do an extra at the Magic Castle. There are scenes at the bar of the Magic Castle.
Yes.
And the old magician and Scott
Bakula.
yeah, they're having a conversation
Right.
with the thing. And myself and this other gal are the couple sitting at the bar right next to him where this person's doing hand magic.
Oh, my gosh.
And Clive said to me, "Okay, Del, what you have to do is sit here all day, watch this guy do hand magic, and drink beer." And I went,
Oh,
it's a stretch.
It, right?
It's a stretch. But I'll work it. But from that day on, Clive and I have been friends, and Clive has been one of the original and a big-time supporter of Dark Delicacies.
Right.
So-
Oh, my goodness.
So I met him by accident because, when your number's up.
There it is.
Oh, very nice. That was nice.
Now, I did want to ask you, as far as writing, what do you think is the most, or do you ever find that you have a block, or how do you get past that writer's block? I get it consistently. I constantly have an issue of, how am I going to start this? Where am I going to, where do I want the reader to go with this when I'm writing a piece, or even if I'm writing an article on, something entertainment-wise from our website or something. So are there any times that you just hit a wall, or there's that creative block for you?
Sure. And there's different types for me of writer's block. Sometimes, like if you're writing a piece, a lot of times I'll get myself out of the writer's block by doing some research. And the research, although you have to be careful it doesn't take you down the rabbit hole,
Right.
the research can energize you. The biggest writer's block has nothing to do with writing. It's the butt block. It's about putting your butt in a chair and starting to write.
Right.
And many times that procrastination is the worst writer's block of all.
That's
Right.
true.
That's
so true.
In fiction, my favorite saying I read on writer's block is when the voices in your head quit talking to you.
Oh.
That's true.
And what you need to do is get them to start talking to
Get him
you
start.
again.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll just write, like I look outside and there is something cool, and I go, the rat was on the phone line looking at the bird or something, and just try to write a whole paragraph. Then I'm juiced. Then I'm flowing. It's like priming the pump.
Right.
But there's other people that never have writer's block. They just sit down. I don't have time to write all the stories I've ever thought of. That's not me.
Oh.
That's not me. It's not you.
Yeah, no, yeah, because
I think starting is the hardest part.
I found, when, like, if I'm assigned to go to a press event and you see a lot of the same people there at a, junket or something, and I come back or I come home, and by the time I get home, theirs is up. And I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I just got home, and, I know they don't live, that close, but, man, their stuff is up. Like, I've always struggled with that, with writing-wise.
I started as a journalist, so I'm used to doing that kind of thing. But you can always do it by just writing on a pad of paper the 5 questions, the who, what, where, when stuff, and then kind of try to start putting that in order, and then you go, we went into the store. Well, I can't say the store, so let me describe the store, and then you get flowing on an article. There's a lot of people faster than me. I mean, I think Joe Lansdale writes a lot. I think, a lot. Stephen King, for Christ's sake.
Yes.
This man can write some words.
I know.
What was it? Family
I wish
Guy?
I had the gift.
Right.
Right? Family Guy did a Stephen King, like a trilogy on one of their shows, and it was when they made a joke about when he gets hit, and he goes up in the air, and as he's in there, this would make a great story. By the time he lands, done.
Yeah. There you go.
So did you ever find that, because journalistic writing and then creative writing, are 2 different formats,
It is, but you're still telling a story.
So
you're not just doing like a police fact sheet.
Right.
So you still have to do the kind of continuity that draws people in with a sense of interest. You have to make them want to read the rest of your article.
Right. Excellent. Because I found that I do a lot of fact writing, and it's extremely hard to get into the creative side of writing. For myself. For myself, it is. And I've consistently, it's one of those things that, let me get up, let me walk around, let me get a cup of coffee, let me go outside and start thinking about something. And
let me message Amanda. And
let me message Amanda. What does Amanda think about this movie? Because I'm ultimately going to say, I disagree, and it's going to be an argument, and then...
Yeah, I am his editor.
Yeah, there you go.
Or you're repeating yourself.
I will tell her, hey, how does this sound? How does this look? Because I think
you
also...
bounce things off of her. And it's good.
I do, because it's a
we all
different
need
set
that
of eyes.
person. Yeah.
It's a different set of eyes for me. Because sometimes when I'm writing something and I'm looking at it, it's great, I'm going to send it. And then she'll see it like, proper, your syntax is off, and I'm like, damn it.
Well, that's one of the things I think people get hung up on, too. Obviously, if you've read my stuff, grammar has nowhere place in my writing. But one of the things people get hung up on is on their first draft, they're worried about getting it right.
Yes.
And I've always said to just vomit on the paper. Just get everything out of here onto there, because you can't work on it in here.
Right.
You have to have it in front of you. Don't worry about your sentence, periods, your capital. Just puke it up, get it out there, and then you can start arranging it. Then you go, well, this thought really doesn't stay with this thought. Let me spread these apart, and you can do things with it.
Right.
Don't get hung up on the mechanics early on.
Yeah.
Excellent. Know the mechanics, but don't get hung up on it.
Don't get stuck on it, right.
So I actually do. I'm a fan of your Dell from This Angle blog.
The
that
blog?
You write. I like that. And I was just, let's see, which ones did I want to see?
I do try to, by the way, for those of you out there, Dell from This Angle is a blog that is attached to our website,
yes,
darkdell.com. And if you go along the stuff at the top that says the store, upcoming signings, whatever it says, at the end is more. That's me.
Yes.
More. I'm more. You click on more, and then there'll be a drop-down menu, and one of the things is Dell from This Angle. And
yes.
That's the blog.
I like it.
And really quick, what's the website? It's
darkdell.com.
darkdell.com.
1 L in Dell.
And there, you do have a mailing list, right?
We do. You can sign up for it on the website. You can sign up for it when you're in the store.
That's right. And do you still offer memberships?
Yeah, at the moment, we still do. Yeah.
Okay.
And that takes 10% off everything for a year. When you
for
pay
a year, everything. That's right. So.
The blog, one of the things before you get into certain blogs,
sure,
is people, if they follow my Facebook page, not the store's Facebook page, but my Facebook page, sometimes I've been known to poke the grizzly with a stick.
Yes.
So I try not to get political on the blog. I don't think I've written a political blog.
Right.
Nothing about Trump stinks or this sucks or what. I don't do that on the blog. The blog is about other things that bother me. It's almost like an Andy Rooney
Yes.
kind of thing. Did you ever notice?
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, it's a commentary. Like, see, an example of one is film failures and why do we care?
Yes.
I like that one very much. And you refer to The Shape of Water and A Quiet Place in that.
I was pointing out two different. That's an interesting one because this is really for all of the horror fans. We tend to be forgiving sometimes.
Yes.
And what creates our forgiveness? I mean, if somebody is a better director and you've loved all their stuff and they do something story-wise, or the writer story-wise, that is like, what? You just broke your own rule, or how did that happen?
Right.
As opposed to somebody who's brand new and you watch it and you go, yeah, there's mistakes, but that's okay. The movie was so good, I let that slide. How do we decide that within ourselves? What's our own criteria for?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And then, unlike other people, he gave a spoiler alert. I'm not naming names. I'm just looking in directions.
I'm out of the way from these laser beams coming across it. Choo, choo, choo.
Yeah, he had a problem with that with the Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is a show that he really loved, and so he was really excited. And he'd go on the show and just blah, 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 blah. And then we had one listener or follower, and he's just like, thanks, Robert.
Yeah, I killed. Well, I
He's
mean,
very sorry.
I was, especially the show's gone, which really broke my heart because I'm a huge Evil Dead fan.
And that ending where it actually turned out to be Ash was something. Oh, was that?
Was that the season finale?
But that's funny. Yeah. Do you have a feeling on the forgiveness thing? I mean, I did use two films that most horror fans have seen.
Right, The Shape of Water and A Quiet Place.
And A Quiet Place. In Shape of Water, I was like, really? How did they get the water to fill up the bathroom? And if he was captured in the Amazon and he's an Amazon god, that means he's a freshwater animal. Why did they keep pouring salt in the bathtub and dump him in the ocean? You know,
that's
there were
true.
things
Those are very good points.
And people go, oh, well, it's brackish water in the Amazon. Well, the truth is, no. No, it's not, because when the sailors were coming in on the galleons into Brazil, they could actually scoop fresh water out of the ocean before they could see the country. So that river water isn't very brackish. It's so powerful coming out of the Amazon is what it is.
Right.
So there's a mistake. Did you like the movie or not like the movie? Does that thing hurt it for you? In Quiet Place, it was like, since the guy took them to the falls and said, look, why didn't they live there?
No, that's a good
with
point.
the sound of the falls. I mean, because
Right.
where they had all those red lights and stuff. Where was the electricity coming from?
Right.
So
Yeah.
do those spoilers, and they're in every movie, has got something.
Yeah, every movie, every genre.
Are you okay with Quiet Place because it still tightened your sphincter? Or
I love that you said that.
or was because you liked the love story and stuff, was it okay on Shape of Water, those errors or those things that pulled, not necessarily errors as much as things that might pull you out of the film? Why do you forgive one and not the other? And
Right.
that was the point of the article. Do you have a criteria for, I mean, did you like both of them and none of that bothered you?
I didn't see them in the theater. Saw them after. I was really delayed in seeing them. I did have an issue with A Quiet Place. That's one of the things I had an issue with. And
Did you still enjoy it?
I still enjoyed it, and I still really liked Shape of Water.
Right.
I still liked it a lot, but
that's why I picked those two films, because I think in the end we liked both of them.
Right.
It just
and I think what it is though because I am a fan of Guillermo del Toro's work. I love just about everything he does, but
That was no Pan's Labyrinth, though.
Oh no.
you don't hear that every day. That was no Pan's Labyrinth.
No, Devil's Backbone, Pan's Labyrinth, just heads above the rest. I mean, it really sets the bar as far as storytelling. But I was still forgiving for it. I was still forgiving in The Shape of Water. I still really liked it. And it's weird because, like we talked about, horror fans are very forgiving.
We have to be.
Star Wars, I'm a huge Star Wars fan also. Solo, I was not as forgiving
And why is it? Where's the criteria?
And I don't know. I don't know in my psyche why I do that or why I've done that. I'm not one. First and foremost, and she knows, like I've always said, I'll never just destroy a movie or say that movie sucks without giving any reasoning or saying anything, because there's a lot of work that goes into a movie, even if it's a low-budget movie. And
I don't think a mistake ruins the movie. It's
right.
just that, does that pull me out of the movie for the moment and I have to work to get back into it or not, kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. So, I'll never just say, that movie's so bad, it's horrible, it sucks, don't watch it. Because like I've always thought, and what we talked about earlier was with it being an artistic endeavor, it's subjective. It's art. I can't. It's hard to say. When we say I give it 4 stars out of 5, it's hard for me to accept those kind of things because movies to me are very subjective. It's someone's artistic endeavor. But there are little things that I will be forgiving on. But again, like when it comes to big budget stuff, I would always think, you should at least have your shit together for a big budget movie. Come on, it's a huge...
So all those Transformer films kind of went right in the toilet for you.
Oh yeah, I think I've only seen one. Yeah. I think I've literally only seen one. But yeah, I think when something's a little bit smaller, and you can tell that whoever has this or wrote the story had the idea of moving the movie along based on a good story, that's when I'm a little bit more forgiving. Mm-hmm. And it's not such
comes
a big...
back to the writing for him.
Yeah. It's not such, hey, look at this explosion, look at this CGI thing that we did, look at this guy flipping 30 times in the air and landing on the car in the 3-point superhero stance. I don't care about that.
Right.
If the story's good, I'm forgiving. So
I've always said, if all you have to offer me is something I can see at home for free on a Lexus commercial, I'm not interested. See, the explosions, all of that, you have to give me more, and that's, I'm with you 100%. It's in the writing.
Yeah,
the writing is the foundation of the building.
Exactly.
That's there's I'm gonna make a fool of myself right now. There's a movie. It's an animated movie, but it totally pissed me off because of, like you said, it wasn't a plot hole or I don't know, Madagascar 3, and they swim to effing Monaco. They swim to Monaco, and I was just like livid, and I was at the drive-in with my kids, and I'm like throwing popcorn and just like, how come they didn't do that before? And they could have because it totally took me out of it, because the whole thing was that they were like stranded someplace and they couldn't get anywhere else, but they swam to Monaco.
Thank you for spoiling Madagascar 3
She just
for us.
totally spoiled Madagascar 3.
I know. We are a huge DreamWorks fan base here. So. Oh my gosh. So, another one, let's see. Oh, you talked about, what is it? Why are the great movie monsters still dead? That was another blog from Del from This Angle.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it again to see what angle. Why are they still dead?
Why are they still dead?
Was I referring to the movie monsters like Jason Freddy time period, or was I referring to Universal? Yeah, why aren't we... for instance, take Frankenstein, for instance, which is he's one of the great monsters of all time. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not Frankenstein is the monster, okay? I know it's the doctor.
Right. I know there will be people that will say, well, that's actually not...
Pushing up their glasses.
Yeah.
Right.
I liked that show, but when he called Frankenstein the monster...
I was out. I was out.
And one of the earliest of all of them, and yes, that was written by a woman. Just so you know.
That's right.
This is the 200th anniversary of Frankenstein.
The modern Prometheus.
Yep. Every time they have tried to do something with that monster lately, it was like, that horrible thing where they had all the monsters in it and the Van Helsing.
I was just going to mention that.
And Frankenstein looked like the robot on the TV show Lost in Space with the little lights in the head. And beep, 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 danger, Will Robinson. Why can't they do them right? The last good ones were maybe Hammer
horror films.
I can't think of a really where people were excited about a Frankenstein. Is it because he's archaic and no longer viable? Is the Wolfman, what was that last try with, Benicio del Toro or somebody?
Right.
Yeah.
The Wolfman because I believe his dad's Anthony Hopkins. Really? How did this happen? Did he get born with that strange accent? So,
I think
where do they fall down on this stuff?
the most recent incarnation of the Universal monster was
the Mummy.
The Mummy.
Yeah.
And
Oh my God.
And it was
Mummy Impossible. That's what we called it.
That's what it was. I told her because I went to go see it. And I bit the bullet.
I shamed him for it.
I know.
But she's complaining about Madagascar 3. So,
I didn't know that at the time either. I would have came back at her with that. But I remember seeing it and just so disappointed because I thought this movie doesn't know what it wants to be. Mm-hmm. It's an action, over-the-top CGI mummy movie, but it doesn't know what it is. There's so much action in it. Is it horror? Is it a monster movie? It was bad.
Or when they even tried to do Anne Rice's Mummy.
Yeah.
Bad. And in the Tom Cruise one, then it was like, oh, well, we also want to show you in this movie how we're setting up for the franchise.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, don't do that to me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what just nail in the coffin, so to speak, was the CGI Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing was not makeup. It was CGI with the actor, I can't recall his name right
Russell
now.
Crowe?
With Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe. It was CGI when they did the transformation. It was not makeup. And I just thought, that's it. I'm done. Not anticipating any of these. What was it? Dark Universe, I think they were called. Yeah. Yep. The Dark Universe, and I think it's kind of defunct now.
I think that may have killed the Dark Universe.
I think
Yes,
that one movie and they were out. So.
But and that Van Helsing was to kick off when they did that movie. When they released Van Helsing on home video on DVD, they re-released all those box sets of the cleaned up, like here's the whole real Frankenstein franchise, Frankenstein, the Bride of, all that.
Right.
Here's the Dracula one, here's the Mummy one, whatever. And they were so far superior to this Van Helsing thing they were making that.
Oh my gosh!
What is it that the people are missing? It's like when they redid the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh.
Now the guy they cast as to play Freddy is an excellent actor.
Jackie Earle Haley.
Jackie Earle Haley.
But the point was, it was somebody in a tie said, you know what? These parts are really the parts that people relate to. So we'll just make a movie with just this stuff.
Right.
It's like what they did with Iron Man. The first Iron Man, and I don't like comic book movies. I loved the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
And then they said, you know what makes these special? His wisecracking and jokes and stuff, not the whole story thing. So then they went overboard in that direction, and they ruined things. They don't understand that a present is part of the whole thing that's wrapped with bow and everything. It's all important, even if the payoff is this.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember telling her when I heard, they were remaking Nightmare on Elm Street with Jackie Earle Haley, and I was genuinely excited for it.
He's
good.
He's an outstanding actor. Was a fan since Bad News Bears, but no, he's great, and I was so
it was very exciting
for it.
when he was cast.
And then seeing the finished product, I thought, oh man. What happened?
Like, who knew that Part 4 would be superior to?
Yeah.
And I understand the thought process in doing remakes. I mean, there's been remakes since the beginning of movies. Hey, this is a sure thing. We're putting a lot of money on it, so we've already got a head start by doing this. It was successful. It's not that they ran out of original ideas. I have a store filled with 7,000 original ideas right here. It's the fact that Hollywood still runs scared. And I understand they run scared because there is a lot of money involved. So if you're pitching something, you want to hedge your bet as much as you can do it instead of going, this was a great book, it'll make a good movie. And they're like, well, we don't read, so we don't know.
Right.
And can we sell toys with this?
Yeah, but I would like to see, that's why I'll give something like A Quiet Place.
Right.
Or any of the smaller indie franchises a whole lot more leeway because at least they're doing something original.
Right.
Yes.
We're doing an original small budget Wolfman. No, they don't do that. They come up with an original idea. So you have to give them some leeway because at least they're trying something new.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I maintain that if they're going to remake any movie, I'd like to see Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh, yeah. And
There's
there's
a
been
CGI one.
the Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
Right.
And there's been.
Even have John Astin in there.
What do we have? Like five 4 or 5 blobs and,
Oh, yeah.
Different incarnations.
Different
right.
incarnations, yeah.
Right.
Now, those kind of things, you can't screw up. I mean, we made it to Trimmers 5 for crying out loud.
Exactly. Right. We know what we're getting into when we see those
That's
type
right.
of movies.
Yep.
We're there to have fun.
That's where we enjoy it for its cheesiness.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I also wanted to ask you about what you think about what Blumhouse is doing, especially with Halloween right now and the retconning. And we're going to go back to Carpenter's original vision of kind of like the babysitter killer. He's just the shape. There's no relation there. And so I'm curious, I referred to you as a sinister wordsmith. So I'm curious, somebody like yourself, what do you think about that and how they're approaching it?
I am a purveyor of nightmares. That's
There
true.
you
So,
are.
I think it's great. Actually,
Awesome.
I think it's great. I enjoyed the trailer, so my hopes are up.
Right.
But if you're going to go back to the original thing, go back with John. And they did.
Yes.
They took John Carpenter and they went back, and it's the people I know at Blumhouse are lovers of this stuff. This is not the fast buck society. I mean, they know how to make a low-budget film and make money on it and keep the franchise going, that kind of stuff, fine.
Right.
They're not doing it with this film. It's like this is getting more of the masterpiece theater treatment, and I'm so jazzed that Jamie's coming back.
Yes.
I think that's a very exciting thing. I did enjoy Halloween 2.
Yes.
So
I did too.
If they had started it after Halloween 2, I would have still been okay.
Right.
Right,
You
right.
know, I think Halloween 3 is the most misunderstood horror film ever made. I think it killed itself with that title, and if they had just called
Yes.
it Halloween Night or Killer Masks or something, it would have stood the test of time a lot better as a horror film.
Yes.
It was people were expecting A and they got B.
Right.
You know.
Yes, and I love Tom Atkins because
And I
that
love
and,
Tom Atkins.
You know, that and Night of the Creeps, which is his favorite of his films.
Yeah.
So
that was all good stuff. But now to go back to the roots, when did the first Halloween come out?
78.
78.
78. So you're going back many generations of people who may not have seen the first one. I know what that sounds like, but it's true. You know, I've had people come in here and talk to me at the counter and go, well, I don't know about that. It was before my time. What the hell does that mean?
Oh, my gosh.
I said to him, you know, I wasn't around for World War II, but I know about
But
it.
I know about it.
Yeah, I read a couple of things on it and saw an Audie Murphy movie. You know, I know something.
Oh my God! I heard who was it once? I think her name was Avril Lavigne, and she was being interviewed, and they asked her like, "What do you think of like the Ramones and like Iggy Pop and everything?" She's like, "Well, what do I have to know about them? This is my music now." Like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
You're,
Yeah.
You
Where do
call
you think
yourself
that
punk?
came from?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
she did. You're mentioning her. I did see her doing I think she was doing an announcement for the Grammys, and she announced it. David Bowie as David Bowie.
Oh my God.
That's absolutely true. I remember seeing that.
Mm-mm.
But
Nope.
that was just bringing her up. So you triggered something in my mind when I remember seeing her doing an announcement for David Bowie.
Let's see,
David
saying
Bowie.
It again.
Yeah, there
And
it is.
it's David Bowie.
You're repeating
Yeah.
that terribleness.
And this show is now going to be called Tangents.
Right.
Because we're going to.
We're going on tangents.
But I had somebody in here one time. I'm standing at the desk, and it was a gal and a guy walking in, and I had a bust of Vincent Price there.
Yes.
And I didn't hear what he said to her, but she said, yeah, I think he was an old-time actor from early horror films. So he had to ask, who was that?
Oh my God.
Or is that Vincent Price because there was a box near it so he could have read it? I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, he was an old-time actor from
Something. Yeah.
You have to know your history as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a musician, because you are standing on those.
Right.
Yes.
You came from that, and if you don't know that, you have nowhere to go. It's not like you're out of whole cloth and aren't you original? You know,
Yes.
you came from somewhere on
Right.
this stuff.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I just made a post the other day about Vincent, which is the short film that Tim Burton made.
Right.
And about Vincent Price, and in order to get somebody to understand who, and again they were younger, who Vincent Price was, I had to refer to Edward Scissorhands. And
Yeah.
I had to say,
Or they wouldn't
Edward
get it.
Scissorhands, and they're the inventor. Oh, okay, I know who
Oh,
that is.
The old guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was just like, but that post that I made, Victoria Price liked it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was so excited.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
amazing. It was before my time.
Now, I wanted to get your thoughts too, because we've gone back and forth on it as well.
No fisticuffs.
Almost,
yeah.
almost. But I think she would take me, so that's why. I absolutely know she would take me. So
Steel toe Doc Martens.
that's why I don't push it too far. The Universal and Blumhouse is bringing Halloween to Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con. That's where they're going to be doing.
I did read something, maybe on one of your posts. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jamie Lee Curtis announced she is going to be out there for Hall H. Now, what are your thoughts as far as we don't get a lot of these big panels or presentations at horror conventions, like at Monsterpalooza or say.
No, you get them at comic conventions.
You get them at comic conventions. Yeah,
Thank
you get them at these big. I mean, they're not even. It's not even a comic convention. It's like a multimedia convention. I've been going to Comic-Con. My first year was '94. Jumped in my '71 VW Bug, headed southbound on the 5 freeway, ended up at Comic-Con. And it's evolved, it's changed, it's just grown to this big, massive event now. But I wanted to get, like, what are your thoughts as far as when they bring horror movies to a general audience rather than to a specific audience that is probably going to already embrace it, like Monsterpalooza,
which is the exact reasoning. Yeah. I think it's great. I think one of the things I dislike the most, and I think this counteracts that a little bit, is horror fans are so used to getting cheesy films and bad films and things that when they get something that's okay, pretty decent, they go bananas. They go ballistic.
Right.
Oh, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Unfortunately, when they do that, I believe it hurts us as horror people, because what it tends to do is make people that you're referring to, like at the Comic-Con, who are not horror people, look at something and go, oh, this is the best they have to offer.
Right.
And it's not. It's just that, oh, thank God, it's like having a sip of water when you haven't had any instead of a glass of water, you know. So I think if they have something good like this Halloween franchise, oh, please, yeah, if they do, I think that's who you need to bring it to. Star Wars is not a big hit because only Star Wars or science fiction fans go to it. It's a big hit because everybody goes to it and goes to it multiple times, because you can't have those kind of numbers if people don't see it multiple times.
So
that's the crowd you have to embrace and teach, but don't teach them when you have a good film that it's the greatest.
Right.
So
because my argument was always what these movies make money off of the casual fans. Your hardcore fan is going to go. If you're a hardcore fan of Halloween, you're going to go. But
that's a given.
Yes.
Your dedicated horror fan is going to go see it. They make their money off of the casual fan, the person who doesn't always watch horror movies, who doesn't always watch Star Wars films, but because it's kind of the in thing and it's popular,
right?
And whatever studio's done pretty good at marketing it, that's going to draw in your casual fan, and boom, that's where they're going to make the money, and that's where you have a potential for part 2, part 3, or wherever it goes from there. Because I've noticed horror has been having a bigger presence at Comic-Con recently in the last few years. I
think horror has suddenly had kind of a resurgence. When you have films like Get Out and Shape of Water, which we can throw into the horror category, although it's actually more dark fantasy, but it has a monster.
Right.
But those kind of things making a presence in places like the Academy Awards, and you have filmmakers and creators like Mike Hill, who did the outfit for Shape of Water, and Doug Jones, who wore the outfit. People who love horror films and love the monstrous stuff suddenly making the national stage.
Right.
I think that is great for us, and I think you're right. It's having a big comeback right now. So when the casual fan, maybe they'll become less casual if they're given a good product.
Right.
But I think that's who you have to court. You don't have to court you and I.
Yeah, I mean...
he's feeling vindicated over there now.
No, because we've had serious debates.
Who did that in my ear? I just heard nanner, nanner, nanner.
Because, I've
I'm
always...
blowing you a Raider kiss right now.
I've always understood, like I said, the horror fan is going to go. And even when, in the early 90s when I used to go to San Diego Comic-Con, and even into the very early 2000s when I was going, there was always a lot of horror as far as publication. There were horror novels. There were horror, magazines, graphic novels, comic books. I remember when The Walking Dead, came out, and So there was always horror publications, just not movies. They didn't show a lot of movie stuff there.
You had to search it out too. If
Yeah,
it was there,
I mean there were some underground, smaller production companies that would come bring, like the B movie or something that was a smaller production.
You know, like that thing they'd present in Hall B while you were waiting for why you were actually there.
Yeah, as you're walking by, you're like, oh shit, what's in there? It was always one of those things. But just recently, and within the last maybe 5 or 6 years, horror is making is trying to get a bigger presence at San Diego Comic-Con. We went to last year when I was there. We went to the
Annabelle Creation.
It was kind of a press event, and it was the cast of It. Was all the kids were there, the entire cast of It, and
see, that made a big splash too. So that was a good thing.
It made huge money.
Yeah.
And Lulu Wilson from Annabelle Creation, she was there, and we got to talk to her and interview her, and so. It's becoming much more prevalent at San Diego Comic-Con, but do you feel there are horror fans that kind of feel a little neglected in that sense?
And slighted because at our conventions, we're not getting that kind of presence.
Yeah,
and I think maybe yes, maybe too bad. Maybe the fact is nothing to do with Comic-Con. The fact has to do with our conventions. Maybe the problem lies in the convention people who put together, I don't know, I'm just pulling these names out, I'm not accusing you. Maybe the people who put together HorrorCon or Monsterpalooza or whatever the thing is, aren't reaching out to get those things to have as presentations at their convention. Oh, because that's too big, they're showing that at Comic-Con. Maybe part of the problem is with our community, not with their community.
Okay.
But another thing that Comic-Con did for 2 years in a row, up until year before last, I hosted panels on horror upstairs at Comic-Con in those, the rooms up there, with horror authors, Jonathan Mayberry, the guy that wrote Hex, Thomas, from, the overseas, everybody. They were standing room only. They were packed, and we had a panel of about 6 or 8 people, and it was great. And after 2 years, they said, we're not going to do horror panels anymore.
Oh.
Why? They're filled up. They're standing room only. The people love them because we were talking about books. We were talking about horror books is the only thing I can say, and not horror movies. So talk about feel slighted. Come on into the realm of literature.
Right.
Because horror literature, I think, really gets a short shift.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's horrible.
So I would love to see that continued. I have no problem with the people doing horror premieres or preview exclusives or trailers at these things. Just bring them to our conventions too.
Yes.
Right.
And then I'd be happy.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So we both win with that.
But I think part of the problem might be the organization of our conventions. Maybe they don't reach for those things.
Okay.
The closest thing you usually get to film in the horror conventions is, we're having a film competition. And we're showing these little indie things that are 10 minutes long or a half hour long. And we're going to vote on them, and someone's going to win the indie film. Why not include Blumhouse to, hey, can you bring a trailer for our thing and show it? Hey, Warner Brothers, hey, Universal, can you do this? You don't need to bring the movie. Just bring us a preview.
Right.
That we can, again, because we're preaching to the choir here.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, because that's his thing. He says horror movies will always attend horror movies no matter what.
Horror fans.
Horror fans, yes.
Right.
And so, even for example, Rob Zombie's got his new one, 3 from Hell is going to come out. And Lords of Salem really irked me. But I'm going to go watch.
Almost as bad as Madagascar 3.
Almost. Nearly as bad.
Almost.
That effing lion. So, but I am still going to go watch 3 from Hell because it's a horror movie. And
you want to support the genre.
Exactly.
Oh, another one, I haven't seen it yet, is that one that came out recently with Toni Collette.
Hereditary.
I saw it.
Did you like it?
It was...
Did you see The Witch, when it came out? Did you like that? Was it too slow? Do you not like thoughtful horror? Do you only like in-your-face horror?
I didn't see it in a movie theater, and I saw it at home, so I honestly believe that affected the effectiveness of the scare and the suspense and the buildup of it.
See, so I took both my daughters. We went to go see Hereditary, and minimal jump scares. There were two jump scares. It was a little bit of a slow burn in the movie.
Is that bad?
It just felt a little too long.
Too
for
slow.
Me. It was a little too long. But once we get to the climax of the movie and towards the end, I thought, okay, now it's bringing it in. But I almost felt like, man, it took me too long to get here, because I started to really care about it, and it got really good at the end. Yeah. Then everything kind of, the writing really packaged it well at the end. But it just took us a little too long to get there. It's not a bad movie at all. It's not horrible. From the creative point of view of it, I think it's great. I think it looks good. It's shot really well, and it looks really good. And there is that dread through the whole thing. And even in a couple of the jump scares, they're a little cheap on the jump scares, as far as, kind of like those things like, we got you.
Right.
So
it's okay to throw one or two in.
Right.
I hate it when a movie relies on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Hereditary didn't rely on it.
Right.
It was very story driven, but for me it just took a little too long to get there. And then, when we walked out, I asked my daughters, "Okay, what'd you think?" It's too long.
How old is she?
She's 11.
Do you think maybe she was too young for that approach?
I think it was just a little over her head, because we thought it was much more of like a straight possession movie. That's kind of the way we thought it was going to be, and so she was looking forward to it. But yeah, I think it was a little too over her head.
She didn't get any pea soup or spinning heads.
Yeah, she didn't get it, and then tell me later, I wasn't scared though.
Yeah.
But
no, not all horror is scare horror. That's
right.
Just one division.
Right.
Well, I really enjoyed the subtlety of Annabelle creation, because there weren't so many jump scares, but for example, like when the little girl is hitting the ball from the gun into the other room, and then it stops, and then you just hear pounding footsteps, and you don't actually see anything. So to me, that was like really intimidating. I watched that movie 5 times in the theater, and each time I still had my hands up over my eyes, because it genuinely scared me. So
cool. It's like that scene in Mother, if you ever saw Mother, or Mama, which ultimately failed as a film, but had that great scene where Jessica Chastain is in the hallway, and you can see the kids playing tug of war in the bedroom,
Yes.
and they're playing tug of war with Mama,
right?
Yes.
But you don't see her. In fact, that's one of those movies that failed when they revealed the monster.
Yes.
Because suddenly it was like I was watching Darby O'Gill and the Little People with the Banshee kind of thing. And it was also one of those movies that had a lot of plot holes. It had to move a little faster so you didn't, it was like Hitchcock said, move it fast enough so they don't have time to think about it. And Mama really would have benefited by that, because, you start thinking, so did the girls live for 8 years on cherries?
Right.
Where they each had one dress. Well,
yeah.
And you start thinking
maybe Mama was a seamstress.
And then they broke their own rule, which was they said early on that the ghost is here to complete a task, and when that's complete, then they go away. And when she was given her kid, it was like, what the hell? Threw the kid away and went on being a scary thing. So
right.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Mama.
It's old, so we were able to say,
it's fine.
So I have a big question. I refer to this guy as my vampire nemesis.
Oh.
I'm going to ask. I am a fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think it's an awesome vampire movie. This guy favors Interview with the Vampire.
I just don't think, I don't.
Don't blame Keanu again.
No, no, I'm not going to throw in Keanu in his accent. For me, it was because I was a fan of the book first. I read the book before the movie came out, and I thought, I had all these thoughts of what New Orleans looked like, in those times, and the Creole, and so
they captured that for you.
For me, it did.
Yeah.
For me, it did. I think that's why I really liked it, was because visually it was who was it? Neil Jordan, director?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Neil Jordan. I think it captured it for me when I actually saw it. But I'll say, when I remember, and I was just a teenager when the movie came out, I remember when they announced, okay, this is who will be playing Lestat, and I was like, what, really? We're gonna, this is the best we could do. I can't see that. And ultimately when I saw the movie, I was like, oh wow, it's a great movie. I thought it was good. I thought he actually did a pretty good job at it.
Vampire Impossible. Right? We'll get every monster and have him do it.
And then we're gonna add Impossible to it. So I've always held on to the fact I thought it was a good movie. I really liked Bram Stoker's Dracula with Francis Ford Coppola, but what took me out was Keanu.
Oh, see, he went there.
I had to.
He went
See?
there.
I
had to.
I did love the fact that they went back to old school effects in Coppola's thing, and I thought it was gorgeous. The costuming was unbelievable.
Yes.
It wasn't Stoker's Dracula, but it was a really good film.
Right.
And all of
I find it funny that neither one of you, your favorite vampire film is not Lost Boys, right?
No, it's not.
No.
I have friends. I have punk rock friends, and their absolute favorite is The Lost Boys.
Lost
yes,
Boys.
absolutely.
And my favorite vampire film is Near Dark.
Oh.
That is my all-time favorite.
Well, before interview,
big Tim Thomerson fan. Tim, I want you to know that. This shout out to you.
There we go.
mine was because I think it was one of the first Dracula movies I had seen was Frank Langella's Dracula.
I couldn't get past the eyes. I couldn't get past that. That thing, like, what is going on with his face? His eyes are wiggling.
Well,
I couldn't.
the ladies loved him,
They
right?
loved
the
him,
ladies loved the Frank Langella Dracula in the 70s, and I know he did it on Broadway as well.
Wasn't there a Louis Jourdan one too that the ladies liked also?
Yeah, there was.
Oh.
There was that incarnation of it. Yeah, but I remember, and I was young too when I saw that movie, and I remember my mom. One of my aunts was like, "Oh, let's watch that
again."
Yeah, it's on. At the time, it wasn't quite. I think it was cable, but it was on TV.
Yeah,
you remember on TV?
Sure.
And yeah, Dracula was on. I was like, "Oh no, everybody sit down. Shh, it's Frank Langella. We're gonna watch Dracula again."
Yeah.
So that was my.
I think that was the first film where I saw the wall climbing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
On the outside
Yeah.
coming. Yep.
Yeah. So that was my first love or thought for Dracula.
So, I gotta go.
Gotta go. We gotta go.
We're gonna go.
We're gonna go. We're glad you didn't go. That you stayed with us.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. And
really quick. I want to give you the address to the store again, and anything that you have coming up, and put your website and.
We're at darkdel.com. 1L.
That's right.
We're at 3512 West Magnolia Boulevard in Burbank. That puts us one block down from Porto's, and we all know Porto's.
That's
absolutely.
right. That's why I gotta go.
It's lunchtime.
That's right.
And there's lots coming up. You can go on the website. You'll see the schedule of upcoming things. I mean, it's packed. You've got one over here in front of you.
I do. I always, on paper,
And that's a whole list of stuff coming up, so come join us. Thanks for hanging in here with us. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, no, absolutely. Thank you. Hopefully you'll welcome us back again sometime. Maybe we'll get a better connection.
Please do. Yeah. And we made history today. This is the first time we've ever had a live broadcast from Dark Delicacies of anything. So
nice.
You made history.
Righteous. Cool. Right on.
And we're going to see you at Midsummer Scream.
Midsummer Scream. We will be there last weekend in July in Long Beach. I hope you can all join us.
Do you know your booth number yet?
No, but we've got an end cap, so we'll be easy to find.
Perfect.
And Mick Garris will be signing at your booth,
Mick Garris will be signing at our booth. In fact, we have 2 or 3 people sign because they're having a panel on Hocus Pocus. So we'll have the composer, we'll have Mick, and I think we're getting one of the actors. So
yeah, Thora Birch is last I heard.
Yeah, so that'd be good.
That's awesome. And again, Mick Garris, if you're out there,
and,
I'd like to
don't
interview
forget that there'll also be Mick Garris.
Yes. He's my hero. That man is my hero.
So make sure to check out Dark Del at. I was going to say it again.
Darkdel.com.
No, at Midsummer Scream. Come visit his booth. I was going to say Monsterpalooza again.
Monsterpalooza. We won't be at Monsterpalooza, but visit there too.
Yeah, that's
just
cool.
Just down the street.
That's right.
It's in Burbank. The Son of Monsterpalooza.
Son of Monsterpalooza.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for hanging out from the Nerd Report. Amanda, Del, it was really cool to hang out and talk with you.
Absolutely. So cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See ya.